I'm finding out today that there are a lot of vehicles in Shreveport Bossier that I did not know were here, including this McLaren. Oh, I didn't realize there was a Spider actually. That is a nice piece right there. This is one that I hope, if I can find the owner, maybe we can set something up to do a review on Vehicle Visionary, but at the very least, it's and welcome to today's Vehicle Visionary. Today, as you can see behind me, is the 2018 McLaren 570s. Yes, this is one of the most amazing vehicles on the road today. It is an incredible supercar, and I can't wait to tell you all about it, so stay tuned for today's Vehicle Visionary. Let's just start out here with the amazing styling cues of the 570s. The car really looks like it's meant to cheat the wind. I really like the styling of the body. The headlights, they just look perfect because of the way they basically follow the contour of the body, as you can see right now. There's also the incredible front splitter that just makes the car look like it has the most incredible stance on it. And that of course flows onto the sides of the car with the rest of the ground effects package and just the amazing look of the McLaren 570s. And as you can see on your screen right now, the remote for the 570s is very simple. You use it for unlocking the doors. You can use this bottom button for opening the trunk, or the frunk as some people call it. And here's the amazing thing. Of course, it's not like a hood on a car. It's really like a rear trunk in that you don't have to actually reach under and find any sort of a latch. You just lift straight up and it actually opens. And take a look at how much space is actually in this front trunk of the 2018 McLaren 570s. There is more than enough room for a large bag or maybe a couple of bags depending on what your needs are. A lot of supercars do not have that much space in the front trunk. Now as we move on to the side of the 570s, I want to show you the incredible brakes on this car. These are carbon ceramic brakes, which basically what that equates to is the fact that when you push down on the brake pedal, it's going to take a little bit more pressure, but as the brakes start to heat up, they are going to work better and better and better. These are some of the absolute best brakes on the market. And when you have a car that is capable of going as fast as 204 miles an hour, you're going to need good brakes, good stopping power. That's a fact. Now before we step into the interior of the 570s, let me give you a little information about the 3.8 liter twin turbocharged V8 that is in this 3,300 pound McLaren. Now the 570 coupe, yes, it weighs a little bit less, about 100 pounds less, and the only difference between the coupe and the Spider, which is this version that I'm standing next to, is just the actuator motor for the top, so that you can put the top down. And to be honest, that little bit of extra weight could actually provide a little more stability, because a lighter car can be more difficult to handle on the road at higher speeds. And so honestly, I don't think I would mind having a little bit of extra weight, basically 101 pounds, on my 2018 McLaren 570s. The 3.8 liter twin turbocharged V8 makes 562 horsepower and puts out 443 foot-pounds of torque. It's mated to a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. Getting into the McLaren 570s is just as simple as reaching underneath the door, pushing on the button, and easily lifting the door open before getting inside. we're sitting here in the interior of the 570S, let me show you how simple this interior really is. Of course, you have all of your modes and features right here on the center console. There's actually a little cup holder at the very front if you wanted to use that. That's kind of a long way to reach for something like that. But to start the McLaren, you put your foot on the brake and push the start-stop button. You have your suspension modes on the left up here at the top just under the start-stop button, and on the right you have your drivetrain modes. And it has normal, sport, and track. And we'll be driving in normal and sport today. Won't be using track, but it's still going to be a lot of fun. In the middle, when you get ready to go down the road, you have drive, neutral, and reverse. And then, of course, your hazard lights if you need that. You can open your trunk. You can put the top down here as well as on the door, as I showed you earlier. And then, of course, in the center, right underneath the two air conditioning vents, you have your infotainment system that is actually very simple to use. You have all of your different features right here. Everything is very self-explanatory. Radio, you can bring up the climate control, basically anything you could want. But one thing I want to point out that I really like about the 570S is the fact that the paddle shifters here on the steering wheel, it's not like most vehicles. If you want to, you can actually use these interchangeably. They're actually connected to one another, so that instead of having to use the right side to move up a gear or more, or move the left side to downshift one or more gears, you can actually use either one for either function. You can upshift and downshift on the right, upshift and downshift on the left, depending on your preferences. This is your parking brake. You push it forward to disengage, you pull it back to re-engage. If you want to adjust the steering wheel, you'll use this right here. It basically adjusts it in a multitude of directions, and right behind the adjustment for your steering wheel is the lever that allows you to raise or lower the front end. And when you get up to a certain speed, I think it's 30 miles an hour or so, the front end automatically lowers back to the stock position. Your blinkers are activated on the left-hand side of the steering wheel, and your windshield wipers are controlled on the right-hand side of the steering wheel. So, told you how to start the 570S. Let's do that. So it's actually a very interesting experience if you've never had it before to drive something like this. But I'll tell you what, it's a lot of fun. It's great. If you ever get a chance to drive a supercar, don't be afraid of it. Just have a good time. Just, you know, if you're afraid to the point that you're basically, oh, I can't do it, that might not be a good idea. But having a respectful fear for the horsepower that's under your foot and having it be a really light car, just have fun, take it easy. You can drive it normally. You don't have to get on it and go really fast and all that kind of stuff. It's just, it's meant to be driven that way, but until you have enough experience to do that, you might not want to. So let's get on the road and see what happens. And one thing I can tell you right off the bat is that one thing different from the 570S compared to, say, a Lamborghini Huracan is the fact that you have great visibility all around you. It's not hard to see. You don't have the major blind spot over your right shoulder on the right-hand side of the car that you do in, say, a Huracan and some other cars. I'm not trying to put the Huracan down, but I know from experience in that particular car that there is a big blind spot. And in fact, I even heard a story from somebody one time, when they get ready to change lanes from the left lane to the right lane, they just kind of look over, make sure no one's there, and if they don't see anything, they just kind of punch it a little bit and go on down the road, and then they can move over some. That way they get ahead of anybody who might be there. One thing I'm noticing very quickly, doing about 55 miles an hour right now, the steering, this is actually hydraulic steering, so you really feel what the car's doing in ways you wouldn't normally feel with, say, power steering, electronic power steering. And that's really a lot of the point of the 570S, is the driving experience. It's all about having a good time, enjoying driving the car, and just the overall experience. Now, I'm going to get a little bit further out of town before I really have a little fun here, but we'll see what happens. There's a little bit of traffic around me right now, so I'm having to be careful and just kind of cruise along here. But we'll see what happens here in just a little bit, and I'll be able to give you a little bit better understanding of my driving experience here. Okay, you know what? I took a turn off the main road. Now I'm on a little two-lane road, and this may actually be a really good road, even though the speed limit isn't all that high, but it's going to give me a good chance to really get a feel for the 570S. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it over into sport mode for the suspension and also sport mode for the engine. And there's actually a little button right in the center there that says active or activate. And the interesting thing about that is that you can actually, you don't have to push it first. You can push it after you've made the changes or before, but one way or another you have to push that button in order for the changes to go from normal to sport or track. Now, I'm just kind of cruising along here, just enjoying my drive. You barely have to turn the steering wheel to make it through a corner. I just went through a somewhat sharp corner. It wasn't terribly sharp. I'm doing a little bit above the speed limit, not too much, just kind of enjoying the drive here. Honestly, I can't really tell the difference in the ride that much. It's a little bit more stiff, but if you put it into track mode, I would imagine it stiffens up quite a bit, but the owner said he doesn't ever do that, basically asked me not to do that, so I'm not going to put it in track mode. But maybe some of you who are watching this video have had experience in track mode in a McLaren, and you can tell me what your experience has been in track mode versus sport mode. But you can really hear that 7-speed transmission downshifting, so I'm going to go. Woo! The 0 to 60 in this car is 3.1 seconds, and I'll tell you what, right there it spun the tires just a little bit. I had to backpedal some, and wow, that was awesome. You know, 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds in a rear-wheel drive vehicle is really impressive. That's really more comparable to an all-wheel drive vehicle compared to two-wheel drive. And of course, I didn't really get on it as hard as I could have because it might blow the tires off of it. I'm not really sure, but wow, this thing sets you back. And that's the difference between a car that weighs a decent amount. You know, I reviewed a Chevrolet SSR that weighs 4,000 pounds and makes 600 horsepower, and I'll tell you what, that's a dramatic difference between this and that vehicle just because of the weight. So let's have a little more fun here. Yeah! I actually put it back into just normal, to the base mode, and so I'm going to find a place to turn around here. We're going to come back and we're going to put it back into sport mode. that, my friends, concludes my absolutely amazing experience in the 2018 McLaren 570s. This car, when it was new, sold for $208,000, about $20,000 above the coupe price, and of course that's because of the fact that the top comes down. But you know, one of the interesting things about that, if you're thinking about buying a 570 and you're thinking safety, well, believe it or not, the 570S with the top up or down really maintains its structural integrity on the top of the car. Even if you put the top down, it still retains that structural integrity. It's absolutely incredible. You can actually put the top up or down at 35 miles an hour, and even though the car has a top speed of 204 miles an hour, and remember 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds, you can actually drive the 570S with the top down at 195 miles per hour. But I think I'll pass. So I hope everybody enjoyed today's video. I want to thank sincerely my friend who owns this car for letting me have this unbelievable opportunity to review the car and to drive the car. Thank you so much. You made my day, probably my whole month. Actually, it goes into April. So thanks a lot for doing that for me. And I also want to thank my friend Ronnie, who you saw in one of my previous videos, for making this possible. He kind of was the mediator between myself and the owner of the 570S and helped to get us together and make this happen. If you live in the northwestern Louisiana area, or if you want to make a special arrangement to have me come and review your car, give me an email, send me an email. My address is on the screen. It's also in the description of the video. Make sure to check out my other videos and please subscribe if you enjoyed my content. Thank you so much for your time, guys. Have a wonderful day.